This week's episode of Bizzong is brought to you by A Death in Toledo, the new book from Bizzong host Mr. Frank J. Edler. A Death in Toledo is the story of Lawrence Nerdle, a geek who fancies himself to be an edgelord, so edgy that he seeks out vampires to get turned into an undead monster. Death just wants to enjoy an afternoon at the baseball game, but's called into action to retrieve Lawrence Nerdle's soul. Only one problem: Lawrence Nerdle isn't dead, he's undead. And now Death has to unfuck that. A Death in Toledo, the new book in the world of Grim Reapers by Frank J. Edler. Available for a limited time for just 99 cents on Amazon Kindle Books.
The following podcast is a presentation of Project Entertainment Network.
Bizzong.
Bizzong.
Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong.
Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong.
This is Bizzong, the weird and wacky fiction podcast, with me, your host, Mr. Frank. What's going on, Zongers? Hope everything's been going well for you. Are you ready to strap in and enjoy yourself a little bit of Bizzong action to take you away from whatever's going on in your part of the world? And boy, Zongers, have I got something to take you away this week. I'm talking about my poor introduction. As you're going to hear, I have the worst imitation of a wrestling ringside announcer ever, but I do my best. I try to be entertaining for you fine Zongers, and maybe I fail, but I fail with a smile on my face. That's right, Zongers. I pretend to be a wrestling ringside announcer because this week's guests, two of them, are the one and only Mr. Lucas Mangum and first-time guest to Bizzong, Mr. Ryan Harding. Yeah, these two have teamed up to write an extreme horror wrestling book called PANDEMONIUM. So I definitely had to get my hands on that book and have these two fine gentlemen on Bizzong this week. Lucas, of course, now a 3-4-time guest. He's been on quite a bit, most recently to promote his book, Extinction Peak. And like I said, Ryan Harding finally got a chance, a good reason to get him on. He, of course, wrote the classic, I consider it a classic, extreme horror book, Genital Grinder from Dead-Eyed Press. That was a hell of a ride, folks. If you haven't treated yourself to Genital Grinder, you really should. So with that in mind, Zongers, let's get into the Bizzong interview of the dream team of extreme horror, Ryan Harding and Lucas Mangum. Give us the gong. Zongers, tonight I bring you a battle of the Titans. Two big boys this week are going to step in the Bizzong ring and square off against me. To my left, wearing the red trunks, weighing in at 760 pounds, the one and only, the terror of Texas, Lucas Mangum. Lucas, welcome to Bizzong.
Thanks for having me, and I don't know how, but you actually got my weight right.
I knew it. It was a guess. And in the other corner, hailing from parts unknown, so we have no idea how much he actually weighs, but it might just be 17 pounds. The one, the only, his first American appearance, Ryan the Doctor Harding. Ryan, welcome to the Bizzong.
Hey, thank you for having me on here.
You guys sound less than excited about this match. But I do bring you on, and I do give a wrestling introduction because it all evolves around your new collaborative effort out now, entitled PANDEMONIUM, which you're billboarding as quite possibly the bloodiest novel ever written. How could I not have you two fellas on to talk about this crazy mayhem?
Oh yeah, I mean, so Ryan, how many people did we kill in this book?
I think the final count came at like 121.
Ooh.
Damn.
Was that a number that you tabulated after the fact, or were you keeping track as it was going?
I kept a little scorecard as I was writing new stuff for the book, and I just like at a certain point I would just had like an outline of every victim and how they died.
That's cool. That's something, maybe that's a good writer tip, maybe, especially for horror writers. Maybe you should keep your body count, tally, because it could come in as useful marketing later on.
Yeah. I mean, and especially like during the writing of it, I think like if you're going to write a piece with a lot of moving parts or a lot of parts that are going to stop moving, I guess, you want to kind of keep track of who's dead and how they died.
That's very true.
In a book like this, their parts can kind of keep moving after they're dead, depending on what somebody does with them. But
That's true.
So, well, let's kick it off. Ryan, why don't you just give us kind of a brief rundown of what Pandemonium is really all about?
Well, Pandemonium is essentially like an unofficial sequel that we wrote to Lamberto Bava's Demons films, the Italian horror series, which had Demons and Demons 2, and then some titles that were supposed to be demons and wound up not being demons, like Michele Suave's The Church. And we kind of merged that world with the world of underground wrestling, and that's kind of how the book took shape, was just the realization that we both wanted to write something in that world.
That's pretty impressive. Lucas, how did you two even come together and decide you wanted to work on, maybe not necessarily this project, but just did you know it was this project, or did you just know you wanted to work together and write something?
Well, we were talking a lot, around KillerCon 2019, because we had gotten along pretty well at KillerCon 18, and then like in and around the KillerCon 2019 time, we were just like sending emails back and forth and kind of reading each other's stuff. And then we just kind of got talking about those Demons movies. I think it came from we each wanted to write a zombie novel, but we didn't want it to be like your regular zombie thing. And I think Ryan suggested that if anything, he would want to do something in the vein of Lamberto Bava's Demons films, and I had just got done watching them back to back, like for the first time in a while, and I was like, I want to do something like this, and so for him to say that, I was like, all right, so here's what I'm thinking.
Nice. So this is just a sort of a common theme between you two, being into these movies and everything, and I guess, would you call it like an homage to those movies, perhaps?
I'd say that's fair.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of little things in there. We kind of base certain characters on actors in the movies, their appearances, and sometimes their dialogue we kind of throw in here and there.
Now, I mean, the whole thing about keeping track of the body count is actually kind of intriguing to me. Is that something that's like common in these movies? Do you kind of have a running tally of body counts in the movies? Were you trying to outdo a body count somehow because you kept track of that, or is it something you normally do?
I don't normally do that. It was just a case of we started to notice that the body count was really cranking up, and we just out of curiosity, because I don't think I would have guessed we wound up with over 100 people dead on the page. That was that was beyond my expectations. But once I started keeping track, I was like, wow. But in the movies, there's since it takes place in a theater, there's quite a few, but no, they're nowhere near as many as we did, I don't think.
No, definitely not. We definitely, we were definitely, I haven't kept the count of how many people are killed in those movies, but it is, they get it pretty high, cause the first one's in a theater and the other one's in a apartment complex. But I don't think they reach triple digits like we do. Nice.
I know, watching Billy Bob there, he'll do his pre-movie rundown of the tallies and stuff, and but the body count's always there. So I didn't know if that was like a thing, and you guys are trying to outdo, the movies that, that you're into. Cause that could be a pretty cool, like, jumping off point. Like, look, they had 117 in the movie. So we gotta get it up to like 120 and then talk to Guinness. Maybe we're going to have the book with the highest body count. Are you aware at all of books body counts at all? Have you like come close, or you're not even sure?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I mean, I know, like, obviously the Song of Ice and Fire books probably come close. But I don't know. I mean, as far as on-page death scenes, though, like, like death scenes that we actually show and not just say, like, then 100 people got blown up in that building.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know. I think we're pretty high up there. If there is a list of that thing.
If we're not, I'd like to know what it is so I can check it out.
Yeah, that might be have to be like a statistic, like sports statistic now with horror books is keep track of the body counts. And I like that you define it as actual, like, on the page death scenes. It's like you said, you can't just blow up a building and there were 1,000 people inside. That doesn't count, right? That's too easy. You could nuke a city and have millions of people dead. That doesn't count. You have to kill them each individually, or at least very specifically, I think is the best way we need to define this new statistic that I'm going to go to Amazon with to get this.
Right. Because we're not competing with The Stand, which obviously, like, we would lose because 99% of the world dies. And same with Swan Song, but it's like, yes, I don't know. They don't show it.
They wanted to be the first kids on our block to have 121 confirmed kills.
and maybe this can, this book Pandemonium now can set off that, like, oh man, they had, what was it, 121 is your count? Like, we could inspire people from here on out to move forward and get to 122 and just keep going, hurdling. But we're going to have to put a word cap on it too. You got to do it within like 80,000 words or less, because it's too easy just to write a 500,000 word.
Right. It has to be a novel. It can't be a book series like George R. R. Martin.
Okay, I'm gonna work on this. We're gonna get this good now too. So the book itself, how long did it take you to in total once you started writing to collaborate and get it done?
Well, I guess we started it, what was it, September, or was it as late as November, maybe, of 2018 or 2019?
Yeah, because there was a lot of, because there was a lot of email correspondence, leading up to, I want
to say it was like October, November through January. It went really fast by my standards of working. It was a lot faster than I normally work.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because, it was a collaborative effort? Was Lucas sort of pushing you? You finished something up and he'd hand it back like the next day, like, geez, man, give me a moment to breathe. Was that sort of what led, the increased pace for you?
That was part of it, was that as soon as I was sending it to him, he was working on it and I would have it back from him in relatively short order. And with other collaborations, it's more of a no pressure thing where sometimes months can pass before I might see something again. But this was the perfect time to work on it because I didn't have anything else going on either. So when it came back to me, I was ready to jump into it, and I always felt like I knew what to do next, which isn't always the case with collaborations.
Very true. How would you, Lucas, categorize the collaboration? Was it smooth? Did you need a lot of like back and forth to get it to where it was going? What was your experience?
I don't know. I would say it was a pretty easy process. Like we I don't know. It was definitely the most fun I've had collaborating on something. I don't know. I've tried a few collaborations, over the years, and this is the first one to actually come out with a full book. So that might tell you everything right there.
Wow. Yeah, I guess one successful one about with a bunch that haven't come through is obviously
no, but also it was just, I think, the nature of the book. It was like, I mean, it was purely, I think, Ryan feels the same way, is that it was purely us writing as fans. Like, we were kind of just writing the kind of book that we just really wanted to see in print, just something just really over the top and crazy. And it was, I've wanted to do a wrestling book forever as well. And so to do something in that kind of field, in that, arena, was it was just really fun.
Is the wrestling aspect something you both shared, and or was it like, Lucas, you're like, all right, we can do this extreme horror book, about demons and murder and blood and over the top crazy, but it's got to have wrestlers in it. How did that come into the fold?
Well, it was basically, the films, the way they're set up is, they're in the first one, it's a theater and it's a movie playing that kind of opens the doorway to hell. And then these demons start coming out and attacking people. And in the second one, it's a television show that's broadcast in an apartment that does it. And in the church, it's, I believe it's just a mass, and, I was like, okay, so if we're going to do something as like maybe a shadow sequel, we want it to be something different that kind of kicks things off. And I was like, man, I'd wanted to write a wrestling book forever. Like, what if we did some hardcore wrestling kind of thing? And I don't know, Ryan seemed really warm to the idea.
Yeah. I'm not as knowledgeable about modern wrestling. Lucas seems to know it backward and forward, but I've watched enough wrestling back in like the 80s and some in the 90s that I felt like, I can contribute something to that and kind of know what's going on.
Yeah, didn't you tell me a story that that you got? Maybe it wasn't you, but I remember you saying that you were there. Somebody got backdropped by Raven at one of the parties at the old horror.
Yeah, that's right. At World Horror 1999 in Atlanta, Raven backdropped Jack Ketchum on a bed in a hotel room at a party. And that's just like the kind of thing that you see out of the corner of your eye at a horror convention sometimes.
That's pretty epic right there. You don't ever expect to hear like that kind of story coming out, and Jack Ketchum, no less, makes it all the much more fun for sure. Now if I was I'd be in the same sort of boat as Ryan here on the wrestling thing. I was all into it in my younger years in the 80s, the sort of Hulk Hogan heyday of things. And I'd have to take it from there, and wrestling has changed a bunch since then. So was it difficult? Did you think Ryan held up his end of the that part of the story, or was it kind of really you went back to that 80s sort of era to call the wrestling part of the story from?
Well, I would say that there was I wanted to kind of present it in a way that was like it could have fit in with some of the, the 80s stuff, but also like the 90s stuff. But it's definitely set in modern day. And,
okay.
And I guess like some of the, the wrestlers, take themselves a little more seriously and talk about the old days. So we wanted to have that kind of, in there. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think, I don't know. I listen to mostly wrestling podcasts, and I'd say that as far as like the language goes and like kind of the way these shows are presented, I think Ryan did a wonderful job capturing the spirit of it.
Well, I think I probably had some influence from Edward Lee and John Peelan's Goon.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, just going by, for the record, I have the book. I just have not gotten to it yet. So, now you're really getting me itching. But, like just going by the cover, obviously you have that wrestler on the cover, and he's got the the red hood on and red tights, and he's bare chested, maybe with purplishness to his skin. It could be the light, could be his skin. There's a guy behind him with horns and stuff. So it evokes to me that sort of 80s era where there was really over the top kooky characters, you know, that those wrestlers were, as opposed to nowadays. I think there's a lot less of that. So that's where I was wondering if it was, you know, those type of characters as wrestlers.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of that. Yeah. I mean, that's, I kind of wanted to sort of, synthesize like kind of, you know, the larger than life characters of like the 80s, but with like maybe the violent edge of like late 90s hardcore wrestling. And, but then also like kind of incorporate a, you know, more modern sensibilities in that, like, you know, like everyone's kind of in on it. Like everybody knows it's a work, you know, like nobody in the audience like thinks it's real. I mean, even when the demons start killing people, they're like, what are we watching?
So there is supposed to be like it's not as a cartoony feel as maybe the cover might lead you to believe.
Probably not. The guy you're talking about is the Crimson Executioner. He was the first wrestler I think we came up with when we started talking about this, because I just said it'd be cool to have somebody named after the Crimson Executioner from Bloody Pit of Horror, and that kind of opened the door to a lot of different Italian horror and Euro horror illusions like that. There's quite a few in there.
Oh yeah.
That is not something I am terribly familiar with, is the, like you said, Italian. And not necessarily, we're not talking Giallo neither, right? This is something different from Giallo.
Yeah. It's like kind of more, so Argento, who, was known for directing a lot of Giallo, especially early on, he produced these films. He didn't direct them, but he kind of still gets, you know, a lot of credit for them. And I'm sure he had a hand in writing that, you know, and Ryan might know better than me. So yeah, I guess it's an outgrowth of that, but it's definitely a lot more over the top, violent comic book kind of feel.
Right. We were influenced by that and just various, Euro horror that has a lot of gore in it. Was definitely a big influence on the book. And sometimes you'll see like names based on actors or just their appearance or something.
Oh yeah. Lots of homages there too. Did you have to build, you know, because the Crimson Executioner comes directly, you know, from those movies? Did you build a sort of whole arsenal of wrestlers that were part of that, or did you just kind of throw people in as you needed them as the story went on?
Yeah, well, there's a few that are allusions to movies, but even the Crimson Executioner is nothing like Bloody Pit of Horror. We just kind of took the name and the idea of his appearance from that, but he's a different character from like the movie. We just thought it'd be funny to use that.
Yeah, he's more like a Pyramid Head from Silent Hill, right?
Okay.
I'm not confusing him with Resident Evil. Okay.
Right.
Love it. Sounds good. So now that the book's out, is this connected to a press, or did you guys put this out yourselves?
Death's Head Press put it out.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, Jared and Patrick. Yep. They were, they looked at it, I don't know, and they got back to us within, I don't know, a lot quicker than most. It could be the waiting game sometimes.
Yeah. No, once they accepted it, they had a pretty quick turnaround on it, and they were able to get it out and before the end of the year.
That's pretty great. Is this I guess is your both first experience with Death's Head?
Yeah.
Yes. I wrote the introduction to Visceral, the Patrick Harrison and Christine Morgan collection, but yeah, as far as fiction, that's probably my first with them.
Yeah, you know, I know I knew that it was out from Death's Head. It just escaped me in researching the book specifically. It didn't come up anywhere. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I knew that. Now, is this something like, did they come to you? Because like, let's face it, you two guys together make a lot of sense, just, you know, with what you both write. Was it something that they came to you and go like, guys, it'd be awesome if you could give us something either together or separately? Or was it something you had written and said, just kind of approach Death's Head and see if they were interested?
So it was kind of one of those things where Jared had, whenever I hung out with Jared, he always let me know the door was open, and I think he did the same for Ryan. He kind of said that he likes what we do, and anytime I had anything, like he was like, you should, anytime you have something, just send it to me. And Ryan said, has described similar experiences. So I'm sure when Jared saw something from both of us, he might have shit his pants.
It is sort of a no-brainer. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I've known Jared since before he started doing Death's Head. And once he started doing Death's Head, he wanted me to contribute to some of their anthologies, and I would just always be a little too busy with some other project and not be able to make a deadline. So it was cool to have something we could approach him with.
I mean, and it just makes all the sense in the world, not only you two guys, but then working with Death's Head Press on this, because I mean, they've positioned themselves, especially with the splatter westerns, and they dabble in Bizarro, and of course, just they tend to be more into the extreme horror stuff that they put out. So it makes all the sense in the world that you guys are working with them on this project. And
they're making a ton of noise in a very short amount of time.
They really are. They're definitely got a lot of eyes on them and what they're doing. I mean, just on the recent bit of, I don't even want to call it controversy, just a little bit of dust up from the some reviews that came back.
No way.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the splatter westerns had a little bit of dust brush up from some reviews from an outlet, and it was like, well, I maybe those people weren't ready for splatter western, and they had that negative reaction, but it still paid off for them in the end, because everything I've heard is that it's just led to more sales, all the controversy, all the hubbub. So you can only help. How much controversy has Pandemonium stirred up for you so far? Is anybody upset with all the bodies that are laying all over the pages?
I haven't heard anything.
Rats.
So far we've gotten pretty good comments from the people who've read it. I think it's been sought out by exactly the kind of audience who wants that kind of book.
Well, you're going to have to go visit some Christian book groups or something. Tell them that, this will change their life. Just not in the way they think. Stir up the controversy. You guys are, I guess, neither of you, for as extreme as you both write, you've never really gotten much, brushback or hubbub from anybody, right?
I mean, I think that's why we get away with it, because we're kind of quiet.
It's sort of expected. I mean, Ryan, you were, is it a 2-time gross out champion winner at the
yes,
at the HorrorCon?
Right.
Like, yeah, there's no mistaking what you're all about. The man who wrote Genital Grinder, for Christ's sake. I mean, that's like that's kind of almost a classic by now. It's been out maybe quite just long enough to be called an extreme horror classic.
Oh, it's been out about 8 years now. Yes.
I mean, I think that might have been the first like really extreme horror thing I read, and I mean, it definitely blew my hair back. And I was hoping for, who were the two guys in that van? And
the Vaughn and Greg.
And Greg, yeah, man. I was hoping for just a whole bunch of Jay and Silent Bob series extreme horror books with Vaughn and Greg. That would have been awesome.
There's a book that may happen with them someday. I don't know when.
Well, I hope it does happen. You are you're kind of quiet, but you have a lot of stuff out there. Maybe not, fully fleshed out novellas and stuff, but you seem to always be popping in on anthologies and collections and that sort of thing. And now, this collaboration with Lucas, and you've had, a number of other collaborations. Is that, you said you weren't used to working at the pace. Are you kind of slow in developing your work?
Sometimes I am. With the short stories, I have deadlines, so that kind of forces me to do something. If it was just up to me, I'd probably never get a short story written. But with the collaborations, sometimes it's just, especially with like Reincarnage and the follow up to that, there could be delays on that sometimes, just with things in life getting in the way of either myself or Jason Taverner. In fact, I think I held the second Reincarnage book for a year at one point because I had just various things always getting in the way. So sometimes there will be long delays on it. But yeah, there was a 5-year gap between Reincarnage and Pandemonium almost to the day. And there'll be more books coming out in time. I have a few, maybe as many as 4 coming out this year through Death's Head.
Wow, that's great. Can I... you don't have to say if you can't, but I know you work with Ed Lee on Header 3.
Right.
Would you have any further involvement in any kind of Header stories, do you think?
We've talked about doing another collaboration at some point. So I don't know exactly the nature of what it would be. I think he's kind of done with the Header thing, and he's kind of had his fill of like the big head and all of that now that he's done the 3rd White Trash Gothic book. But I don't know. Something I'll have to talk with him about. Yeah, maybe you can convince him to go down like the James Patterson route and go, you don't have to just, we'll put your name big on there and my name small, but Header 4, here it comes. How was that working on that? I mean, Header's like for Ed Lee, and Extreme Horror. That's kind of like one of those big titles. Was there any sort of, hesitation about jumping on that project, or did you feel comfortable working with Ed Lee's baby, essentially? It was definitely a shock to get the email from him and him say that he wanted me to work on it. And, it was overwhelming, and it's one of those things. It's like, I don't know if I can do this. And at the same time, it's like, there's no way you can say no to this. And so I said, yeah, for sure I would do it. Although it was a little intimidating because it's a hardcore horror classic sort of thing. But he'd written a screenplay. He'd intended Header 3 initially as a movie, as a sequel to the adaptation of his novella. So there was a script in place, and I was essentially adapting the last 1/3 of that screenplay to the book, which he'd written to that point. So it was... Other than just like the first day of trying to get into it and take up the baton from him, after that it was fairly comfortable. That's good to hear. And man, I can't think of many people that would be, able to kind of fill those shoes in. But you have a solid resume to be able to do that too. Lucas, do you think you could step in and do Header 4?
It'd be a challenge for sure. What I like about Ed Lee is he's got such a gift for words, where he can be writing about the grossest thing imaginable, and you're just like, you know what though? I would also teach this in a college class if I taught college classes. Like, this is really good writing, So stepping in, it would definitely be intimidating. But I don't know. I mean, I like challenges. I know the thing that blows me away most about Ed Lee is, like, obviously you got the big head and Header, stuff like that, just flat out hardcore extreme horror. But then stuff like, I think it was just titled Dollhouse, where it was a pastiche of some kind of old school writing. And it was like Shakespeare, but he was still cursing and being violent stuff. It was kind of breathtaking to read him, it work that way. That was pretty much I think that's the genius when I really think about Ed Lee is his ability he can kind of write anything and always have his stamp on it. And his stamp is disgusting. Yeah. Right. Dollhouse was the M.R. James story. And then he does those Lovecraftian things, the Dunwich Romance was hysterical. Yeah, those were my introductions to Ed Lee. Like, I'd heard of him before, but I wasn't sure where to start. But then I was like, oh, I like Lovecraft, so I was like, I'm just going to dive in there. It's definitely an unmistakable thing. Do you guys ever strive to do something like that? like a pastiche kind of thing.
Pastiche, yeah, but still give it, the extreme horror treatment.
Not necessarily, not yet. I mean, I'm not against trying anything. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if my short career says anything else, anything, it says that I'll probably try anything.
You'll try anything.
But yeah, I mean, I would be up for trying something like that. For the most part, so far, like as far as like tributes go, like I mean, it seems to be stuff that kind of tributes to cinematic stuff that I've really been drawn to, like with this thing with Ryan, and then I'm kind of working on a full sheet thing with Wesley Southard right now.
Oh wow, lots of collaborations going on. Is this inspired you to keep collaborating, or have you just kind of in the background been collaborating?
I would say it's definitely inspired me to keep collaborating, and kind of, but also to be like, a little, discerning with who I, collaborate with, I think, because, working with Ryan was a lot of fun. And I think, I don't know, like you can, sometimes when you start out, you're like, oh, I want to work with everybody. And then you realize, well, I don't gel with everybody. And, so it's like, you got to be a little more selective.
To me, it feels like in sort of the horror circles, the indie horror circles, especially, it feels like we're in this sort of period now where some guys that have, got themselves established and kind of known and a bit of a reputation are now pairing up with others that, sort of make sense, like you guys did, and are coming out. I mean, there just seems to be, in not just extreme, but in a lot of different horror areas, these collaborations taking place, and it's fun. I've done collaborations in the past, and when they work, they're really fun to do, and when they don't, they're not fun at all. And usually, at least those projects fall to the wayside.
Yeah, it just announced on Facebook today that Christopher Triana and our book, The Night Stalkers, will be coming out this year on Evil Cookie.
See? All these like no-brainer ones, like you're almost waiting for now. I mean, it's got to be inevitable. There's got to be a Christopher Triana and John Wayne Comunale collaboration. Yeah. I mean, how can there not be there? I mean, just see, I just feel like these natural like pairings are taking up, like even you, Christopher Triana, is like, no duh, yeah, of course it makes sense. You guys are right there, and to see a collaborative effort from that it's got to be good. It can't be not bad unless you don't work well together. Have you ever had that experience, Ryan, where you tried it and it's just we can't work well together, the story ain't working?
Yeah, there's been a few that have, collaboration or two that stalled, I guess. And I don't know. There was always just a bad fit. Sometimes too many things would get in the way and progress would stall and we just couldn't get back to it, that sort of thing. There's been I've collaborated, before where, probably there wouldn't be another collaboration after that. It wasn't as good a fit as maybe others were, but, generally it's a good experience.
So, outside of the collaboration, though, it sounds like, Ryan, you do have some standalone stuff that we might be able to expect this year?
Yes, there should be a new collection. That's one of the things from Death's Head, and I have said I would do a splatter western with them, so hopefully I can get that together this year. Wow,
that would be awesome to get in on that stuff. They still have, I know they've planned 13. I think they're at number 8, right? So they still got a handful yet to go. I guess hearing that you're one of them is it's actually pretty exciting. Westerns are not my thing, and I've just, Westerns are really blowing up right now, and whether that's fueled or not by the splatter Westerns, I'm not sure, but just kind of seems like on all fronts they're getting really popular again. And with these splatter Westerns and everybody talking about them, I might have to dip my toes in there and check out a couple of them to see what all the buzz is about, because it's almost non-ignorable at this point, the way everybody's talking about those splatter Westerns in particular.
Yeah, they've Death's Head's put out some pretty violent ones.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
big time ones. Lucas, do you have a splatter western coming out?
I don't. No, I don't. I thought about pitching them something, but I just couldn't come up with anything.
Right.
Maybe after I read a few more, I might. I don't know. We'll see.
You just don't have one in you at the moment.
Not at the moment.
What
Never
could
say
you?
never.
Is there any kind of splatter genre you'd like to see? Follow up the splatter westerns?
Romance. 1,000% splatter romance.
Oh man, you know what? I can kind of get behind that.
You laugh, but I'm thinking specifically of stuff like Return of the Living Dead 3 or Frankenhooker.
Okay.
Stuff like that, where it's got a love story in there and a kind of a tragic one, but it's also really irreverent and gross and splattery. I don't know. There's something there.
There can definitely be something there, and there are a lot of ways to tackle it. When Harry Met Sally has got to have some sort of opening for extreme horror in that story that can be expanded upon.
I think I could go for splatter time travel.
Splatter time travel. That's another good one. Splatter, just sci-fi in general, but then dig deeper into the time travel. Yeah. See, there's a lot of potential here. I hope you're all going to go back to Jared and Patrick and discuss this stuff.
Just splatter on everything.
Splatter everything. Yeah. Well, let's get done with these splatter westerns. We got to move on to splatter romances and splatter time travel stories. I'm all for it. Lucas, you weren't on all that long ago. I know we kind of touched upon some stuff you have coming up in the future. Pandemonium was one of them at the time. But let's touch again. What else can we expect from you in the future?
Right now, not a whole lot going on in the way of releases. I have been writing or blogging every day on at lucasmangum.com. I've got a few collaborations circling. The Wesley Southern one I mentioned, and I'm also doing I guess it's a splatter romance with Wiley E. Young. We're doing a paranormal romance, but instead of a werewolf or a vampire, the woman is smitten by a blob.
Nice.
And so I've been kind of working on those. I've been blogging every day at lucasmangum.com, and then I just started kind of podcasting again with J. David Osborne and Kelby Losack.
Oh, very cool.
And we're doing like it's all video actually, so I guess it's a vidcast or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and we basically are doing like really weird kind of analyses of like weird symbols in music videos and movies, and kind of using that as a jumping off point to basically talk about whatever we want, but we kind of use that as our, I don't know, icebreaker.
Yeah, you got to have a shtick.
Yeah, exactly.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Actually, I'll have to keep an eye out for that as well. Gentlemen, I don't know that this episode has necessarily been a lot of pandemonium, but it's certainly been fun talking about your new collaborative effort, Pandemonium, from Death's Head Press. Let's not forget, from Death's Head Press. Everybody should. It's out. It's been out. So you should all be picking up a copy and checking this out. I hope, like I said, I have it. I got to get to it. It's near the top of my TBR pile, so I'll get it sooner than later. But I'm hoping that it'll inspire me too to check out some of this European horror that you're talking about, because I've been on a like Japanese or Korean sort of horror kick lately, especially on Shudder. I've been enjoying a lot of that stuff.
Oh,
so.
Yeah.
So,
well, they have just as much European horror on there if you want to do that next. So,
yeah, I'm gonna have to start digging into that too. Something I wasn't really completely aware of necessarily.
Yeah, feel free to hit me or Ryan up for Rex recommendations. I'm sure.
I will be doing that. So, gentlemen, it has been fun having you guys on, learning all about the new book. I wish you all the best. Both of you got a lot of stuff coming out this year in the future, so all the best on that as well. Ryan and Lucas, thanks so much for joining us on Bizzong this week.
Thanks for having us.
Well, thanks a lot.
Lucas Mangum and Ryan Harding, the deadly duo. Zongers, man, I've been just really dying to get Ryan Harding on the podcast, to find an excuse to do it. I know I never really need an excuse to get anybody on the show, but with Ryan, I'm kind of waiting. I was waiting for like a new book. So this is good enough. And it really does sound like Ryan's got a ton of work coming out this year. So, we'll probably get him flying on solo later on in the year as well. Looking forward to picking his brain a little deeper on stuff. I kind of pulled him aside a little bit in this interview to talk about Header 3 and stuff like that. But we'll get back into it, Ryan, hopefully in the future. But definitely check out Pandemonium, extreme horror and wrestling, two great tastes that taste great together. Like I said, I've got the book myself, and it's close to the top of my TBR pile. You know how it is, Zongers. It's right after Christmas here. I got loaded with gift cards, and I made tons of purchases on top of the tons of books I already have that I can't read. We all have the same problems in life, right? Good problems to have. Too many books to read. So many people should have that kind of problem. So check it out. From Death's Head Press, I can't believe I forgot that too. The good, fine folks at Death's Head Press constantly giving us great horror books to read. No wonder why our to-be-read piles are so humongous. And hey, Zongers, if your to-be-read pile is already too humongous to deal with, maybe I've got one more for you. I've got a new book coming out the 15th of January. If you're listening to this podcast this week, that's this coming Friday, the 15th of January. A Death in Toledo, a follow-up to my book, Death Gets a Book. It's not really a part 2 or a sequel or part of a series or anything. It's just another book in the world of deaths. Completely different death characters. If you've experienced a Death Gets a Book, it's like that. So you can read it as a standalone if you haven't read Death Gets a Book, or you should enjoy it, hopefully, just fine if you did already read Death Gets a Book. Available for a limited time. It's on pre-order now. You can order it on Kindle before the 15th and reserve your copy, but it will be available for 99 cents even after release day for a limited time, probably about a week and a half before it goes to its regular price. So if you want it, grab it up now on Kindle for 99 cents. I can't do much better than that. And with that in mind, Zongers, I've given you plenty to read this week, but I'll be back next week with more books to shove down your TBR pile. And until then, you are free to go and listen to these other great Project Entertainment Network podcasts.
What evil lurks in the heart of Don Mondo? Only Chucky the Buddha, the enforcer of the Mondo Mafia, knows. Join them each week on the Mondo Method podcast as Chuck tries to get Don Mondo to reveal what is best in life and where he hid the bodies. Oh, they also talk about writing and being professional authors. The Mondo Method podcast with Armand Rosamilia and Chuck Buddha, weekly wherever you find your podcasts.
The Unsupervised Podcast, a show about acceptance and diversity.
I guarantee you these are all white children.
You gotta shoot your shot, man.
Oh, Mick, do you want some rhinoceros?
A show about love.
It's called like a chicken McGangbang. It's like a...
Whoa, I'm the chicken McGangbang.
I'm always grumpy, so I want to dominate it.
Not part of the pounding tube movement.
With some high-class humor and some science.
You need to move your lips more.
Give me another rim job.
The popcorn gives you a boner? I don't get this.
It's science, okay?
Okay, maybe more like the Seinfeld of podcasts, not really about anything specific, but we're going to make you laugh and entertain you for a little while. So tune in every Thursday exclusively on Project Entertainment Network.
This has been a presentation of the Project Entertainment Network.